I can't you. Fellow Southern Cameroonians, fellow viewers, we are ready for the technical issues that we are facing at this moment. I believe Comrade Oganafao, who is the technical team, is going to adjust with our guest, Comrade Milton. Comrade Milton, you okay now?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And welcome once again to this program.
Thank you, Comrade Don Pasho. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, Ambazonians, wherever you are, and greetings to listeners.
Thank you very much, Comrade Milton. You
Welcome.
know, I always like to start my questions by making you, my guest, to introduce yourself, to tell the Indian people who is Comrade Milton, because many people have been seeing Comrade Milton acting vice president, spokesperson for South Africa, spokesperson, under Secretary of Communications under the defunct IG, and right now the Secretary of Communication of the IG. So who is Comrade Milton Taka?
Milton Taka is a servant of his people. I have learned a lesson from my host country that when you are called to serve, if you ask to go to the kitchen and cook, you go cook. If you ask to be the security guard, you just be the security guard. If they ask you to go home and rest because another person needs to take your place, you just go home and rest. So I define myself as a son of the struggle. I define myself as one who's very Ambazonian in nature, not because I was born in Ambazonia, but because Ambazonia was born in me long before this revolution got implanted into the hearts of our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade Milton.
Welcome.
Like you said, you were being called into the revolution to serve in so many departments. You know, when you say you were being called, I will ask you then, when did you join the Ambazonian Revolution?
Well, in 1994 precisely, I was advisor to the SCNC in South Africa. So I'd always had sympathy for the SCNC. I took time to understand that the people were really suffering. But it became clear that we were all in this whole political mess up in Cameroon, hoping that if the SDF were to win power, they will give to our people what they truly deserve. Especially given the fact that in my then capacity as one of those who was within the National Executive Committee of the SDF, I was privy to some information, which is of course not public, that SDF was two parties in one. One was a commitment to ensure that the people of Amazonia were properly protected, especially their dignity. And I must say, and this can be checked with all key leaders of that party, that I'm one of the most shattered when I look at what route this party has taken in the last 4 years. They have abandoned their founding principle. And I dare to say that as far as the people of Amazonia are concerned, it is rest in peace. They shall never resurrect, even in the next war.
When you talk about the SDF, I believe Ambazonians right now, they have what bended anger on the SDF because they gave in all and all for the SDF. They gave in whatever they could do during the 90s to fight for the man of the SDF. You, who has been the chairman of SDF in South Africa, are you disappointed with your chairman? Sorry, I said you have been the chairman of SCNC in South Africa, the chairman of SDF. Many Amazonians, they have this feeling that SDF has betrayed the Amazonian cause because they stood up for the chairman of SDF, that is Nijon Frundi, when he came up to fight to be a president in La République du Cameroon. So today, you being that leader that has been under, are you disappointed with your chairman and the parts or the issues that you are disappointed with him?
If you go back to the messages that I, as spokesperson of our revolution, relayed to our people on the 22nd of September, it was very clear. I told all Amazonians to retire out of the SDF because after the 1st of October, the SDF would purely be a La Republic party. There are records that I engaged with the highest authorities in the party, including the national chairman, asking that the parliamentarians and senators of the SDF pull out of La Republic's parliament and follow the great lead of our great revolutionaries and founding fathers in 1954 when they left the Enugu House of Assembly. It's no secret that the SDF is to side with enemy. And when we talk of the SDF here, we are referring to the Amazonian component of the SDF. I have no business with the Francophone component of the SDF. It's largely made of those who, to a large extent, fund the party across the Mongo, and they have a right to whatever entitlement they want to claim. But the bottom line is that single Amazonian who was a member of parliament or senator that made up at least 95% of those who call themselves SDF parliamentarians and senators choose to work on the blood of our people so that they could have their little survivor stipends in Yaoundé. That's a fact. None of them can deny that. So disappointment is not the word. Betrayal is the word. The SDF betrayed the cause. That's a fact, and I know that Albert Mukong is turning in the grave and lamenting because that was not what the party was formed to do.
You who has worked in the SDF with Nijon Frundi, he has been a mentor to you. He has been your father in when we come to the political scenario. Are you still in contact with Nijon Frundi? Have you ever talked with him concerning Amazonian revolution?
Yes, of course. I mean, you rightly have called me a son. I mean, looking in my age and his age, I led the strongest SDF diaspora organ over 10 years as its chairperson, won a second term, which was my last term, and luckily that term's mandate was finishing in precisely in September. I mean, I was very lucky that while we galvanized our people to liberate them, at the same time, I was engaging with the SDF leadership at the highest level, telling them this is exactly what our people are thinking, and these are the kind of strategic decisions that we need to make, including the national chairman. I'll tell you, the national chairman told me in one of our discussions that, Milton, I hear you people are saying that I must call all parliamentarians to come out. But remember, these people are voted by you people. So why don't you people talk directly to these parliamentarians? Why are you talking to me? Bottom line is, our dear brothers and sisters in the SDF and in the CPDM, Because you get the SDF guys say, we only attack them, we do not attack the CPDM. The truth is that CPDM and the SDF representation that comes out of our people do not have any iota of the Ambazonian blood that their 1954 forebears had. There can be no justification that while your people are being killed, February just passed, you completely forget about the fact that there's blood everywhere in Amazonia, and all you want to become is an honorable. So yes, I have engaged very vigorously SDF leaders at the highest level. Most of them don't talk to me again because, very strangely, they call us names that even La Republic terrorists are scared of calling. That is the shameful part of it.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Milton Taka. I will go now to something that I would really like you to share more light on it. You know, when was some type of, how can I put it, misunderstanding between some leaders, the gullible Ambazonians took your pictures when you were the chairman of SDF, and they were spreading it that you were supporting the SDF, that you they called you and the South African, that the African cabal. So what can you say to the Ambazonians concerning those pictures and concerning the South African cabal?
Well, my history in this struggle at the forefront of the liberation of our people has been very visible from December 2016. In fact, when our people decided to go out and support Dr. Fontaine and Barrister Bala, I was still chairman of the SDF. That was December 2016. Here in South Africa, I am the one that organized one of the first Ambazonian protests out of Ground Zero. It was massive. At the La Republic Embassy here, there are enough records on social media to prove that. And I did not only do that, I engaged with Barrister Bala. I never had chat with Dr. Fontaine then. I engaged with some of the greatest young men. Some of them are unfortunately serving jail time in Kondenge in Douala. But these were people who had one objective, to ensure that the dignity of our people is restored. My history is that of joining the leadership in the then Cameroon at the helm of the SDF, voted massively by our people, and having run the constituency really well, made fundamental changes, made serious contributions that would have made the SDF much better if those contributions were taken. And once we then decided to liberate ourselves, and I want to precisely talk about me, because you don't talk about other people, you talk about yourself. The day I heard that Dr. Fontaine and Barrister Bala were kidnapped or arrested, that is the word, I was very close to Pa Tassan, to be very precise, because Pa Tassan, being a member of the SDF back in Cameroon then, was equally part of our diaspora community. This SDF South African community was very vibrant. And so we knew each other. And I had personal interest to make sure that he was protected. And once I heard our comrades were kidnapped, my immediate call was to try and get hold of him, which I didn't. But later on, got wind of the exact location and stuff like that, and we did whatever we could do to ensure that this little thing was kept very secret until he left that particular country. Milton Taka is an Ambazonian to the core. Being a leader, we know that surrogates, when they want to sell a particular message, in order to discredit the revolution, because when you attack credible leaders, you are attacking the revolution, you're not attacking them. They could go and dig out my marriage.
I will stop you a little bit and bring you to this issue of leadership. You know, people have been about you being a power monger. Can you tell the Ambazonian people how you became a leader in the Ambazonian revolution?
I'll begin by defining who a power monger is in a revolution. You see, when you are a leader in a revolution, it means you are a volunteer. You're delivering your services pro bono. Pro bono means you receive no salary, you receive no perks, and I talk for me. Whether they call you president or they call you vice president or they call you minister, the truth about it is that you have no salary, no perks. So you can only become a power monger when the people say go and you don't go. Now, Sakoe and myself were elected on the same ticket with a mandate to liberate our people. Out of my unquestionable, vocal, and unshakable positions in cabinet around issues that I knew and I still know will destroy the revolution, I tried to stop my then leader in private, and when it failed, I moved it into cabinet because my loyalty is always
No,
to the flag and the name.
Comrade, Comrade Milton, we are going to come to that. You are going out of track a little bit. I want you just to tell the Ambazonian people how you became a leader in the Ambazonian revolution.
No, I'm coming. I'm exactly coming to that. I'm beginning by saying that because you talked about power mongering, so I wanted to begin with that. A power monger is one who chooses to become a leader whether you like it or not. And I've proven beyond reasonable doubt, number one, that when I got fired illegally, I bowed out because I did not want our country to be dragged into unnecessary fights. When I led South Africa the second time as the acting country chair, I organized an election and we saw Dr. G and Comrade Sofri now coming in. So I have no interest in power, first and foremost, because it's volunteer work. There's no point sticking to power when you're just volunteering. That's number one. Now, how did I become leader? When the leadership of our nation, Sisiko Ayokpabe, and his top entourage were kidnapped from Nera Hotel in Nigeria on that fateful 5th of January, it shocked us. It shocked cabinet like you cannot believe it. And the reason why that shocked cabinet a lot was because some of us left Nigeria in October. I was there during the fourth conclave. And so straight away in your eyes, it was like you just missed it. But now within cabinet.
Comrade Milton, you are coming to
Yes.
your leadership as the vice acting. I am talking your leadership in the Ambazonian revolution from being the spokesperson of South Africa in the Ambazonian community in South Africa, to being the spokesperson of SCACUF and being the undersecretary of communication in the IG of Sisi Kutabe. You managed to find yourself moving from this post right to the top.
Well, I never campaigned for positions. When like I said, when I rallied our people the first time, I was the first technically Ambazonian leader in South Africa. And at the same time, I still doubled as chairman of the SDF. We sat in our Ngumba house and said, because you're chairman of the SDF, let go of the South African leadership. I let go of the South African leadership and we had Comrade Derek Yu, who became our leader. Now, when I handed over as SDF chairperson to the next leader, whoever, I became an ordinary Ambazonian in South Africa, reporting to Comrade Derek. And then I was approached once to say, can you be spokesperson for Africa? And I said, no, I cannot be spokesperson because I am not a communications person. I'm an economist. Well, they then put 1 and 2 together, indicated where the struggle was and why somebody with my kind of experience might help to balance things and so on. So that's how I became spokesperson for Africa. We had a spokesperson for Europe who abdicated the position even before he took it over. Same with the US. And eventually was asked to then speak on behalf of our people. When the president then had to announce his cabinet, he then announced me as acting vice president. Sorry, as acting as under Secretary of State for Communication. When the president was adopted, and we then had to have an acting leadership the various processes that led to the election of leaders saw me then as acting vice president. So it's important to say I've really never campaigned for a position because it was not necessary. I get called to serve.
Okay, we are going to come to that part in this very program today. Comrade Milton, I would like to ask you this question. We understand you were in Nigeria, and you were one, or you were in the meeting in the conclaves. You were one of those in the conclaves, and working as one of the secretaries that took minutes. How was CACUF formed? How was CACUF formed? Who were the key drivers of its formation? Which revolutionary movements championed its formation? Which ones did not come into play during the formation of CACUF?
All right. The formation of CACUF was an Amazonian miracle. The facts are there. In South Africa, we were wondering what can happen so that we are able to get all our leaders together so they can start talking as one language. Milan Atam is credited for the formation of CACUF. Milan Atam, based in South Africa, was hardly around because of his kind of work with the United Nations. So once when he came back, he invited some comrades. I wasn't in the first or the second meeting, and came up with the idea of, if we are able to organize a conference where we get leaders of all nationalist movements that are known to come and sit down, let's form a united platform. That platform would be able to put our agenda item in the eyes of the international community quicker, and they will take us more seriously. It was in that light that different people were asked to play different roles. And I must commend Comrade Derek Yu, whom I know played a critical role to reach out to most of the leaders, Pafong, Galafo, Dr. Akwanga, Ebenezer, Ayabacho, Lucas, and the rest. And of course, because we knew that this was a deadly mission and La Republic would try everything in the book to stop it, we had floated different locations for this particular event to take place. Ethiopia, South Africa, and all the like, Ghana, but we knew it will be in Nigeria. And the reason why we chose Nigeria was because we knew that the struggle belonged to ground zero. That great leaders like Pafong Galafo had to be there. Great leaders like, Tassang Wilfred, Barrister Elias, who just came out of ground zero and were controlling our people on the ground on the platform of the consortium, had to be there. So we then sent invitations to all of these guys. We reached out to some of the good-hearted people within our community who agreed to fund Conclave 1. Some came to the party, and others blatantly deceived us right to the last minute. But bottom line is, we did our best to pay almost the flight of everybody, including hotel bills. And I would like to share the story of Power 4, if you would permit me. And I hope he will as well. Power 4 was on ground zero. And like all other leaders, they didn't know who we were. These were young people from South Africa, never heard as leaders in the revolution before. And suddenly they are saying they want to unite everybody. So most leaders were worried that it might be a La Republic setup. So Power 4 in particular sent a particular leader whose name I would not mention to go to the hotel as a representative of SCAPO, to be very precise, and give him feedback. When he gave him feedback on day one, that truly these are your sons, they mean well and they want to unite the revolution. Power 4 left ground zero on that day, and by midday, Power 4 was in the meeting. For me, that is one of the greatest sacrifices, and it's one of the greatest in our midst. We must never take his sacrifices lightly. Now, I was then nominated as secretary of that conclave with Barrister Naloa. And we had strategic committees that reviewed different aspects of the revolution. We were very lucky to have the likes of Edwin Gang of of the Republic of Amazonia, Professor Carsten Anyangwe, Pafo Ngalafo. So we had the pillars of the revolution. We unfortunately did not have Comrade Cho Ayaba as well as Dr. Kwanga Ebeneza, who could not come because of different technical issues, but there was clearly a signal that there was the intention to be there, but there was equally the fear, who are these guys? So we fully understood that. One of the most important resolutions that came out of the conclave and it is documented, I want Ambazonians to take note of, is that our revolution will be delivered on 3 pillars. Pillar number 1 was self-defense. And in that meeting, the person we had earmarked to head self-defense was Comrade Cho Ayaba. It is in minutes. I had this discussion with Dr. Ebeneza at some point. The second one was diplomacy. And without a doubt, we saw that as the baby of Professor Anyangwe Carson. The third one was legal. We saw that as the baby of Barrister Harmony Babga. And coming out of that meeting, we had unanimity that one of the best persons to be our spokesperson was Comrade Bohabet. So if you look at the spirit of Conclave 1, it had all the good ingredients to allow Ambazonians own and deliver. I don't know it.
Yes, Comrade Milton, you have spoken about the resolutions, and one touched me. You said in that you guys talked about self-defense, and you earmarked Cho Ayaba to lead the self-defense. Did you guys confront Dr. Cho Ayaba after that conclave to tell him that Dr. Ayaba is using your position, can take up this task and lead the people of Amazonia?
The issue of conferring positions then had to be deliberated by the elders that we had identified. What was important the night we were leaving Nigeria was to get a resolution signed. I was commissioned to call Comrade Bohabet, and Comrade Bohabet would attest that I called him at 3 a.m. American time, 3 a.m. in the morning. I persisted and he picked and I said, that was the first time we spoke. I said, Comrade Bo, my name is Milton Taka. I'm calling you from the conclave in Nigeria. We do have resolutions and we would like you to append your signature after reviewing it. Comrade Derek was tasked to call both Dr. Cho Ayaba and Dr. Ebeneza Kwanga, and which he did. Of course, at that time, and I'm not going to mention the names of leaders out of pure respect for themselves and their movements, there were some leaders amongst the names I've called who insisted, so long as there's self-defense in the conclave, I'm not going to sign. And others where if there is no self-defense, I'm not going to sign. But as a matter of principle, Conclave 1 knew that we cannot liberate our people without having a self-defense pillar. While we had self-defense as a resolution, ever did not know that La Republic will become so wicked and brutal that they will not even remember that for 60 years we've not only stayed together, they have milked our country in order to be able to survive. So you would notice that we didn't have a humanitarian pillar, clearly because we did not see the kind of human catastrophe that we are seeing today when we start in that meeting.
Okay, Comrade Milton, you know, I will be curious to the you were appointed spokesperson for Africa. There was person. How did you yourself being the spokesperson for SCACUF? If you are saying here now that Comrade Bohabet was being contacted during the conclave 1, how did you yourself being the spokesperson for SCACUF?
Well, after Conclave 1, Patterson was head of the Secretariat. He reached out to Comrade Boherbet and got his consent that he becomes revolutionary spokesperson. A formal letter was then written and Comrade Bo was appointed. Comrade Bo barely took office, and we then heard there were some tensions. We did hear there was a resignation letter, which we did advise behind the scenes that there should be engagements, and the resignation letter should be pulled back so that, whatever were the issues could be fixed. Bottom line is that Comrade Bo finally publicly resigned. That was public knowledge. And so for quite some time, our revolution did not have a spokesperson. And I think the leadership, which I wasn't part of at that time, then thought, if we have 3 spokespersons, there'll be more fire in the revolution. So rather than just appointing one spokesperson, let us appoint one per a key strategic area within a revolution so that there are 3. Again, in this revolution, I will say that many are called, but few are chosen. You have to get a call from deep inside your heart to liberate your people. Otherwise, for you, it might just be a job. So for some people, it was a risk they were not willing to take. To some of us, we knew that everybody would die someday, but you rather die a fighter than die a coward. And it was important that the job I had done many years before then, which was that of fighting for justice, I continue, especially for my own people. So I took on the job. It was a difficult job, but I was willing to do it.
Okay. You know, I will move now to Conclave 4 because we have spoken Conclave 1 right up to Conclave 3. I will talk about Conclave 4. You know, I always like to state my facts and I call names because I call this program a hot seat. So I will ask you this. A Gov C of Ayabacho Lucas, Ebenezer Kwanga of the APLM, Morris of Bo Herbert, and others call the Fourth Conclave Zaria Mafia. You were there. Do you agree it was a mafia and should the seed of division revolution today?
Well, it's unfortunate that those brothers of ours and probably a sister call it the Zaria Mafia, they all know the truth. The truth is that there was a lot of behind the scenes work that happened to ensure that when we come out of the fourth conclave, we should have a united platform. It must be noted that when we moved from Skakur to the governing council, there was a big cry from our people from their own identity. On all platforms, our people were yearning to have their own government. There were debates on almost every platform. So by the time we went to the fourth conclave, Ambazonians knew that we're going to come out of there with a solid Ambazonian government with probably Comrade Cho Ayaba or Ebenezer Kwanga heading defense, probably Bo Herbert heading communication. I mean, that discussion was everywhere. The question we need to ask is, what went wrong? Because I must say some of these comrades of ours went through thick and thin to get into Nigeria. I know of comrades who flew into Guinea-Bissau before getting into Nigeria, probably through Congo or so. The truth about it is, prior to Conclave 4, the transition between Conclave 3 and Conclave 4 was very painful. Do take note that Patterson was leader of our revolution up to when Milan came in. And when Comrade Milan Atam came in, there were lots of scuffles between the two of them as to what is the extent of your power. So that whole time between Conclave 3 and Conclave 4 had these unfortunate conflicts. Powerful Ungala was tasked as head of a committee to resolve these conflicts. And unfortunately, by the time we had Conclave 4, these power tussles had not been resolved. And because these power tussles had not been resolved, people imagined things that were not there. And out of pure respect again for leaders, and there are some leaders in places where they are that I've always insisted I will never call their names, especially in a negative light. But out of pure speculation, because people were not in places where decisions were being taken, there was some manufacturing of the inexistable. And that manufacturing was sold to some of these our leaders on the platforms you have mentioned. The leaders believe that as being true. I'll give you my experience. When I came into Nigeria day 2, I couldn't be there on day 1. There was war. There was like real war because people wanted to be.
Before we come to that, Comrade Milton, I want you to tell the Amazonian people what you know about the organization of the conclave. Some people say that there was a clique that wanted to hold the conclave and decide on the fate of Amazonian people. And from what I know with facts is that some people were invitations on their own dates. What happened? That there was a fight in the conclave. We saw a video coming from Comrade Mark Barata shouting and ranting. What went wrong? You were there. What went wrong?
Yeah, no, just like I said, an individual. I'm going to limit this to an individual, and again, out of pure respect, I'm not going to mention that. Manufacture the inexistent and sold it to leaders of other platforms who were coming to Nigeria, believing that as brothers we can fight, but we'll fix it. There was a meeting that took place in Abuja, and that meeting sowed the seeds of the craziness we then saw in Zaria. But when I moved in Zaria, remember, conclaves were highly classified stuff. So I did not have the details. So when I got in and there were lots of fights, my first point of call was to check with the president. I checked with President Sisiku then to say, what is happening here? Is it not then wise, because all of these people are fighting, to just let all of them in? Comrade Sisiku got all of us to sit down. And this is what Comrade Sisiku said. He said, when we planned this conclave, we decided this conclave was going to be in 3 phases. I am leader of the governing council. The structures that report to me are country and regional structures. I've invited them to come in for 2 days so that we do a review of the work we have done. We map out where we want to see Ambazonia, and they go. I was one of those who had to go. I'll call that the small boys club. I was one of them. The next phase would then be the leaders of all nationalist movements. They will bring their plan on where to see Ambazonia going, and I will equally bring the plan of the governing council. We will put this together and come up with a roadmap for all of us. When we finish phase 2, we will move like one army down to where our refugees are in Ekom and other places and give our people some love. If you check with those that were within the secretariat, that was the program. But people were deceived. They were told that Sisiku had called country representatives to come and vote him as president and get a government established and whatever, so that when they come, it will be imposed on them. That was manufactured and not true.
Okay. Before the 4th conclave, we saw one of our comrades, Comrade Bo Herbert, lamenting that we need a government. We should go in for elections, online campaigns, and vote for a president, for a prime minister at that time. He was talking about a prime minister. But after the formation of the government in Zaria, he came out and was very, very, how can I put it? He criticized the idea of the government. To you, how do you look at such leadership in the Amazonian revolution?
I'll put it this way. In a democracy, we will respect people for who they are. Comrade Boherbed is known for always advocating for online voting. Those within my circles know I've always been against online voting. I've always been even against what you call just an open ballot where you just nominate anybody to come onto a platform and be elected. Let me say this to Amazonians. A revolution is not child's play. You cannot just get anybody to be your leader. I have always believed, and that's what we do in South Africa, that if you want to elect a good leadership for a constituency, you get what you call the pillars of that constituency to sit down and map out people you know. So it's a kind of revolutionary democracy. If you want a country coordinator in Spain where you are, the leadership sits down and say, who are the best two candidates who can be country coordinators? Who are the best two people who can be secretary generals? You nominate people based on experience, people you know, and then get them to stand in for elections. When you do an online vote, you can get Paul Biya to be the leader of Amazonia. So I would leave it at that, and I would not get into Boherbed's personal or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Comrade Milton. Some people believe the formation of a government is what has destroyed the. What is your take on that?
They're wrong. They're very wrong. And let me say that I respect their opinion, but they're definitely wrong. And some people who equally exist within a government still say the formation of a government was very wrong, and in the context they call government IG. Ambazonians, the problem is not the name you call it. You see, people do not run away from bad companies. People do not run away from bad corporations. People run away from the bad people inside the corporations. So our problem is not the interim government. The problem is the people. Some people within our midst continue to project to be their leaders, even when they know that they cannot pass the basic 101 criteria of leadership.
I will come now to you. I'm laughing because I want to come now to you when you talk about bad leadership. You have been a Deputy Undersecretary of Communication under Comrade Anu, in which Amazonians look at him as one of the most divisive leaders in our revolution. What was your working relationship with Comrade Chris Anu?
When I was Undersecretary of State under Comrade Chris Anu, the leader of this revolution was His Excellency Sisiko Ayoktabe. You would record, it's on record, that up until when Sisiko was abducted, Chris Anu was a darling of the Amazonian people. He was honest, he was vocal, he was speaking for the Amazonian people. Chris Anu would attest to you that as his Undersecretary of State, I enjoyed working behind the scenes. I was the person managing our department. I held the department together. I gave him all the support I could. The true colors of my brother came out when he then became the right-hand man of Samuel Ekome. I cannot say I'm proud of Chris Anu because he's brought a lot of trouble into this revolution, and he knows that.
Very much, Comrade Milton. Like now, I want us to go now to something we have talked about. We have talked about Conclave 1 to Conclave 4. We have talked about this what happened in the revolution. Now, I want us to go now to when our leaders were being adopted from Nigeria. So I will ask you, what happened in that cabinet on that in that unfortunate day, 5th January, and a week after the day, the Ambazonian people have a right to know what transpired in the cabinet. Can you tell the Ambazonian what happened?
No, most certainly. Amazonians have a right, and I'm glad SCBC is back on ground zero, so that some of the questions that people have been begging to get answers for, they will get to know. We were shocked. We were so shocked when we heard our leadership had been kidnapped. We initially thought it was a joke, and then we had word from Nigeria to say, indeed, it is true. Gunmen came in, more like, terrorists, if I may call them, or ninjas, if you may, blindfolded them and took them away, and nobody's heard a word from then to almost 12 hours or so. That scared the hell out of us because, number one, the meeting that was taking place there was not a public meeting that had been advertised. And we, of course, knew that most of our meetings had to have a degree of secrecy given the security. Our immediate reaction then was, what do we do? That was the only thing that was in our mind. We then got a call from Comrade Milton Taka. If I'm not mistaken, I might have been one of the first persons they called. And when Comrade Milton Taka called to say, my brother, you will not believe this, I almost got picked up by La République du Cameroon. I came into the hotel and literally spent the night, if I'm not mistaken. And then I got wind that this is what happened. We had two things to do then. Number one was to try and ascertain if our leaders were alive. Number two was to try and get Comrade Milan safe and out of Nigeria with immediate effect. We had serious engagements, and there was a helicopter that had to pick up Comrade Milan out of Nigeria. Of course, this is the kind of experience he had. He told us that that would be a mistake. Anything you do with the Nigerian government involved, or some people call themselves very experienced, might actually be picking me and giving me into their hands. So I'm going to disappear on the ground, and I would advise. But in the midst of disappearing on the ground, he contacted lawyers to try and force the Nigerian government to give an indication as to where our leaders were. So it was a difficult one for us in cabinet because for the first 48 hours, we were not headless like headless. Because remember, we had a very active cabinet, but we felt a great sense of danger, given the fact that none of us could reach out at our leadership. By day 3, because I think that was on a Friday, and we were promised that they were going to be released by late that day, and it did not happen. We then had a promise that they will be released on Monday, and by end of Monday, it became clear that this is more serious. We didn't know where they were then. Nobody could tell us what was their condition and so on. So the discussion in cabinet from that Monday then was, what do we do? Some people were of the opinion that you do not allow a revolution like ours to stay for 12 hours without a leadership. Others were of the opinion that we wait a little bit. But as the days went by, it became clear that the leadership was to have a command structure that was going to act in the place of the president. So that is when we decided to form a 3-man presidential council. And we were very tactful in the way it was structured. We pulled the chairperson of the ethics committee. We pulled the chairperson of the judicial.
Let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you a little bit and take you to something very critical in the Ambazonian revolution.
Okay.
How did the cabinet come to agree that Comrade Christopher Anu should go to Nigeria and do the press conference that he went and did in Nigeria. How did you guys in the cabinet came to that agreement? Because I am asking this because you need to clear the Amazonian people, because stories and blackmail is what has been killing the revolution. People are blackmailing Comrade Christopher of being the sellout. He went to Nigeria to conclude the mission of selling our leaders. So it is better for you to clear this very information so that he can be saved from this mess.
Yeah, of course. What some Amazonians have now specialized to do is to blackmail others. When Comrade Chris Ano indicated in cabinet he was willing to put his life on the line to go to Nigeria, engage with the barristers we're working with, who were working very hard, Falana, and to try and get the location of our leaders. Within cabinet, we were scared of his life. We were like frightened. We were like, people have just been picked, and you want to fly into Nigeria. But he was confident he had put in the necessary security and was ready to take the risk. So from within cabinet, we were proud of Comrade Chris Ano. We were indeed very proud. That's the reality. I worked with him to get Amazonians with a journalism background to source the media that we saw at the press conference. Most of the people, Amazonians, keep hearing manufacturers of tales say they sold our leaders. Most of them don't have facts beyond reasonable doubt. And I've always insisted that I would never be one of those who accuses anybody, and I'm not able to withdraw my words. So I would not want to phrase Comrade Chris Arno or support anybody doing that.
I want to coin this question and get something again from you, Comrade Milton. If I am right, I will ask you this. Did the cabinet take the decision, or did the cabinet sit down to say who can go to Nigeria and help in finding where our leaders are? Or Christopher Anu decided to opt to go to Nigeria?
Well, no, Chris came up with the concept, presented it in cabinet, we supported it, and a budget was allocated for that. Those are the facts.
Okay. That's when you guys put in place the three-man cabinet. What happened that you changed the three-man cabinet? What happened? Was it that the three-man leadership was not doing their job well? What happened that the cabinet decided to come up with the position of sitting president and acting president? What happened?
Yeah, the three-man cabinet, like I said, was carefully structured. We needed to look at leaders of specific arms of government. So we had Barrister Bobga, who was head of the judiciary. We had Chifonkem, who was head of the ethics committee. And we then had to get a woman to balance that. And that's where Comrade Nancy came in. Within them, we did not choose a leader. We had it as a three-man presidential council because we did not want a situation where somebody is giving power and the power gets into their head. Particularly because, remember, the president announced his cabinet on the 1st of November and then worked for just 2 months. So we had not signed in a constitution. The Restoration Council was still being created. So within the three-man presidential council, they chose Barrister Bobga to be their leader. It is important we have it on record that Barrister Bobga was the candle lighter on the ground. He was the man who made the magic from the perspective of lawyers in 2016.
Yes,
and they were doing
Comrade Milton. Again, what happened? What happened that the cabinet changed that 3 man. What happened?
I'm coming. So they were doing really great. They were really, really doing great. There were two demands that led to the change of the Presidential Council. Number one was, even though Barrister Borga was heading that, there was a cry that we should have a formal person, not a group of 3 people to lead, one person who becomes the acting leader, acting on behalf of the president. That's number one. And number two, there were people within our midst who undermined the leadership of Barrister Borga, and they undermined the leadership within cabinet, and he felt seriously abused. I say that on record. And when it became clear that some people were pushing very hard that let's have one person lead, he gave in to say he doesn't have a problem. Proof to that is when elections still had to take place, he was part of that. So he was not crazy about positions.
Okay, before solving the 3-man leadership, I will ask you, when our leaders were being taken, you guys in it, what did you guys do to contain the malaise that fell on us? Because many Ambazonians, they always say there was a neglection. You guys neglected this issue of our leaders. That is why we find ourselves where we are today. What did you guys do to contain such issues?
The beautiful thing is that the facts speak for themselves. Again, our leaders were kidnapped just 2 years into the instatement of that government. We were a young government, we were vibrant, and everybody was doing their best in their various positions. The number one objective of cabinet at that time was to find our leadership and get them released. On the 5th of January, we held an emergency meeting that morning. We held another meeting within 24 hours. We were holding meetings on a daily basis, and the important decisions that had to be taken were what are the necessary instruments that must be deployed to make sure that our leaders were found. And it had to be lawyers. We did our research, and Nigeria's number one human rights lawyer, Falana, was the person we finally got in touch with. And then we got in touch with Orok. Why Falana? That was somebody who had the ear of the president. We knew that this was very political. We knew La Republic was involved. It would not just be Nigeria. And if you look at actions of cabinet between then and when our leaders were forcefully deported to La Republic, to Cameroon, in terms of meetings, in terms of decisions, in terms of money we spent from Brado's purse in order to ensure we get the best of lawyers. It is a disservice to the revolution if anybody says we didn't do enough. We did everything we could. When it became clear that they were in Nigeria in an underground bunker, we then involved the UNHCR that eventually saw them. And the UNHCR gave us their guarantees that the Nigerian government will protect them and they will not go to Cameroon. When we eventually heard they were bundled like cargo and sent to Cameroon, our first point of call was the UNHCR for an explanation. So trust me, we did our best.
Comrade Milton, I want to come to you. When I listened to Comrade Milan Atam when he did his presentation, so Comrade Milan Atam stated in his presentation that your boss, you were of communication, your boss, Comrade Christopher Anu, went out during his communication to the Ambazonian people. He messed up the strategies that the cabinet had at that time. Is that true? And how did the cabinet handle such information?
Well, as head of communication, what is right is for you to write a script and get it authorized when you go out. So that every time you make pronouncements, you don't make pronouncements on your own behalf. You make pronouncements on behalf of a collective position that has been engaged. I think I understand the exact point that Comrade Millant was mentioning about a mess. I'm sure he was talking about the statement that Chris Anu mentioned our leaders had been killed and thrown into the ocean. Is that what you're talking of here? I cannot be
Yes, sir.
yes, I cannot be in Chris Anu's mind to know why he came up with that. At least it was not a collective position. I cannot be in his mind to prejudge
Comrade
what the
Milton,
plan was.
Comrade
Let me
Milton,
just finish this, if you don't
Comrade
mind.
Milton.
Can
No,
I just
no,
finish if you don't mind?
no, no.
Okay.
Let me say something. You
Okay.
cannot be in his mind. You will never be in his mind. The problem here is he messed up such information. What did you guys in the cabinet do to fix it up? Why didn't you guys come out with a corrigendum? Such information. Why did you guys stay silent?
This is my view, and I think that was the thinking we had in cabinet. We did not agree with the declaration that they had been killed and thrown into the ocean, but we believed that he meant well. We believe his objective was to put La Republic under pressure, but we felt that was gross, given the fact that they have family, wife, and children, and of course, nobody want to hear their parents have been killed when they don't even know where they are after quite a number of days. So it was the right decision for cabinet to not do what you're saying we should do. You leave that and it flies out of the window.
Yeah, so with me, I talk with what I believe. I conclude here that you guys, the cabinet, you failed the Amazonian people.
I will not agree. Again, I will not agree because you must remember that when you lead, there are moments when you need to take very tough decisions. They might not be popular. In due course, your people realize indeed it was the right decision. At that time, what was important was to save the lives of our leaders. And you must know that we didn't have surrogates within the ranks of the IG. We didn't have division. We were a united house. So even when somebody made a mistake in public, we came in house, we talked about it, and we fixed it. But bottom line is we knew that the motive was not bad. We knew the motive was to put La Republic under pressure. We regretted the impact it would have on its family. And I mean, you don't win it all the times. But that, if you were in our shoes, you would have made the same decision.
Okay. Now, I come to you with this question because Amazonians need to know. How did you, Comrade Milton, and Samuel Ekome Sako became acting president? How did you guys emerge?
Well, the letter that announced us as acting president was published to the Amazonian people on the 4th of February 2018. Between the 5th of January and the 31st of January, we had the presidential council leading our people, and they were supported by a crisis management group that sat down on a daily basis to track what was happening and giving them advice. But on the fateful day of the 31st of January, two things happened. There was a memo signed by the Director of Cabinet and the Chief of Protocol sent to the House of County Reps. The letter was sent giving the House of County Reps until 7 p.m. that day to nominate. I want to insist on the word nominate and not vote. To nominate two candidates, one from the Northern Zone and one from the Southern Zone. So everybody within cabinet within the House of County Reps had to nominate by 7 p.m. And the reason why it was critical to get that nomination was because within cabinet, we had planned a step 2 that we would then vote an acting president and an acting vice president who nobody knew. So the House of Country Reps made up of country heads, regional heads, as well as ambassadors, nominated 12 people for the position of acting president and 15 people for the position of acting vice president. So I actually laugh out when people say Ambazonians do not have enough talent to lead. We do. Now, step 2, 9 p.m. the same day, the 3-man committee made up of the director of cabinet, the head of the PPMED in charge of projects monitoring and evaluation, and a female member incorporated to represent cabinet, conducted these elections at the House of Country Reps or the nominations, as well as the elections within cabinet. And within cabinet, the top 3 candidates, and I will call their names. It is Barrister Bobga, Chris Ano, and Sako Ekome. They ran in for the position of acting president. The arrangement we had agreed on was that whoever then became second will become the acting vice president. So Sako Ekome won as acting president, and Barrister Bobga won second place as acting vice president. But given the treatment he had received and predictions that some people might continue to distract his leadership, he decided to pull back. So this is something most of our people do not know, that the acting vice president of our nation indeed should have been Barrister Bobga. Cabinet was summoned, and all of these was happening on the 31st of January. So that was then on the 1st. We had 4 candidates that made it, who had the highest number of votes to sit in beyond Barrister Bobga. I would not mention the names for technical reasons, but 2 of them could not run. So the 2 candidates who could run for the position were Elvis Cometa and myself. We have it on record that I asked Comrade Elvis Cometa to become the acting vice president. I gave him my entire vote for one reason. Elvis Cometa grew up knowing was the chairman of the SCNC in the US. So without a doubt, he had more experience and was in a better place. Elvis decided, on the contrary, that I should go and was not elected. I was elected unopposed. That's how Sako Ekome and myself became the joint ticket bearers of AP and AVP in the transition period.
Okay, thank you very much. Now ask you this, because there is a story going out that Christopher Anu won the elections, and the cabinet decided to take it over from him because he had some power mongering tendencies in him. So to change it Dr. Samuel Sako, is that true? If true, can you tell the Ambazonian people?
My job is to state the facts exactly the way they are. The House of Country Reps and Ambassadors had a responsibility to nominate and not vote. Christopher Ano had the highest nominations, 8 to be precise. Sako Ekome had 5, and Barrister Bobga had 4. Those who had to vote were members of the cabinet because we knew each other. And the truth about it is that Chris Ano had 1 vote on that day. That's a fact. He had 1 vote. So the stories that go around saying that he won and his position was taken are not true. I must equally add that 2 mistakes were made from our part of the collective of cabinet. We made a wrong assumption that for you to be acting president or vice president, you had to be in cabinet. We forgot that Sisiko Ayoktabe was not a member of the Central Corps in Skakuf when he was brought in to become the leader of our revolution, And without a doubt, he's an ordained leader given what he has done. The second thing is we didn't vet anybody. We did not vet. I just talked about you getting a 7 p.m. a letter saying you should nominate people at 7 p.m. and at 9 p.m. on the same day we had elections. So these are some of the lessons we've learned in the revolution, that you don't just trust people because they go on air and hold microphones and say they're Amazonians. A lot of these people are sellouts, they are agents implanted, and so they know exactly what to say to the struggle people.
Yes, that is what I wanted to ask Comrade Milton, because it was 1 month after the president and his cabinet were being arrested in Nigeria. So why did the cabinet not vet or not do a background check on any of you before giving you guys the position of leadership?
When it came to running the revolution, we were all kindergarten peoples. We didn't have the experience. We knew you were a revolutionary if we saw you go on TV and call yourself an Amazonian. If you went at the rally, you got pictures and you posted yourself. We thought human beings were good. We thought human beings were honest. We actually thought that everybody in cabinet was honest. Time has now proven that you need to be careful when you choose a leader. Once you do not do vetting, very deep vetting, which requires a long period of time, interviews, and probably presentations. La Republic can prepare a candidate and get us to vote. And we will be voting that person because they donate more money, they speak on a lot of TV programs and so on. I want to believe it is a lesson that all of us Amazonians have learned. For me in particular, the biggest mistake we've made in this revolution is not vetting leaders.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade Milton, for answering this question. Now, I will ask you something very, I don't know how to put it, but, Amazonians, they would like to know, you were the vice acting president of Sako's government when he launched My Trip to Boya. As vice president, can you tell the Amazonians what was My Trip to Boya? Because till this moment, I don't believe any Amazonian knows what is My Trip to Boya. Can you tell us?
That's an interesting question. Very, very interesting. You get me laughing because what is My Trip to Boya? My Trip to Boya is My Trip to Boya, okay? You see, Sako Ekome went on TV and made an announcement that give me $2 million. I will take you to Boya. This is my covenant with the Amazonian people. If you give me the money, or if you do not give me the money and I do not take you to Boya, I will go away. We were alarmed, shocked, flabbergasted. And the reason was because we never had this kind of a discussion in cabinet. I mean, I reached out to Sako Ekome and I asked, $2 million take us to Boya? That's a dream. It is not going to happen. We are dreaming. So why would you go on air and make such a bold statement? It's too risky. And he explained to us, or at least to me, and then of course to members in cabinet, that you see the idea is to get the money, put in an investment, and the money will be coming out, and we're using it to fight the revolution and so on. But bottom line, and I want to say this, and I say this not only to Sako, but to all other leaders. When you lead, you are not leading yourself. You are leading a collective. Your position can never be the position of the collective. I don't care whether you call yourself a president, acting president, or whatever. The moment it's a policy position, you have to bring it in the house for it to be debated.
Comrade Milton, You are
Yes,
taking us
conversion.
somewhere else. I want you to tell me.
I'm still answering the question.
Why did you
I
guys?
have still an answer.
Why did you guys in that not knowing what was my trip to Boya? Not knowing what was my trip to Boya. Why did you not to know what was my trip to Boya? And if you did not get the answer for my trip to Boya, as a good leader, you needed to tell the Amazonian people you don't know and you resign. Why did you stay there without knowing what was my trip to Boya?
Now, you see, I try to stay with the facts. And I've always stayed with the facts. Like I said, number one is this announcement was done, and we were like, woo. And of course, in cabinet, we then said, well, this is a fundraising project that will raise money needed for the three revolutionary arms, self-defense, diplomacy, legal that we had mentioned. Number one. Number two, Sarko then brought in Irene Gua and made Irene Gua director of discover in cabinet. And I speak on that in cabinet with the sense you will take no things happening between February and March, just when myself came into leadership. We believed that the objective of it was to raise money for the revolution. It became very clear to us that Sarko means something different when he launched so-called narrative investigations. But on my I want to say, we believe the money was for the revolution. We believe the right thing for us to do at that time was not to fight a good initiative. You will agree, all of Amazonians saw my trip as a good initiative, and most Amazonians contributed. So our role was not to fight it. Our role was to go out and galvanize our people to raise as much money as possible. And I stand guilty for calling people in different countries, in Australia, in Norway, in many places, having Zoom meetings with them and getting them to contribute. Because as far as we were concerned, this money was going to be raised. It will be reported in cabinet. Cabinet will decide which percentage goes where. All of these are things that never happened. But you will only have discovered this when? In May, June.
That is what I am asking, Comrade Milton. You saw this and you knew this well. I am forced to say, can we Amazonians conclude that you are one of those who manipulated us?
No, the mistake making, Comrade Pacho, is when we launched my trip to Boya, we had a call with Amazonian people to say, we are going to raise the money and then spend. So if you start raising money in March, how will you know that anybody has an ulterior motive when you are still raising money? Does it make sense? We were still in the revenue generation phase of the project. So the troops were in the field, all of us. You were there. You did a lot of fundraising. Don't forget. And in your mind at that time, you were not asking, where's this money going to? Because you knew it was going to go to the ground to fasten our move to Boya. It is, I want to repeat that so you don't miss it. It is around June, July that some people started hearing that games are being played with the money. And for the first time in September, when the ASC had a secret meeting where we were 20 in that meeting, and they said, listen, people, there's trouble. Out of almost 500,000 you guys have heard that has been sent to us, we've only received about 170,000. That was the first time it became clear that my trip and believe this is good for us to generate money, as at that time we're doing the revolution, we're doing what was right.
Thank you very much, Milton. Thank you for answering our questions. I will call on the technical department, Comrade Ogana Fau, to at least give us a few some advert so that Comrade Milton can at least have some water. Then we come back later on. Thank you very much. Oga Nafao.
Oga Nafao. All that.
Hey! One Congress na junto wu to SCBC o to SCBC.
Bomangbe etwara SCBC.
Hotana voma se chwobe tuwa tiwe ka chongwe eyongoto etoka bazonia efo chindu nyakombo na banga ba SCBC no be echong se de ma fia mondu be ba manyuko tikabo kapa manche SCBC atoko mbe.
Aha. SCBC now we own. Now we the people of Amazonia now we think. If you like SCBC, sponsor SCBC, support SCBC. Bataroki. PayPal account. Payments at scbctv.com. Oga Nafal.
Wir so drum kituke saifen when we yivis na dungri SCBC.
Mway, lebi eleme, ambazon ye, we fin kwite, begun SCBC.
Beye kwete wasi bazubuge, izukap, akwa TV wangi SCBC, nuna wuni babuge, si bazuka, azongzangi.
Babengamba, Muntong Toko Chama, Munsungambara, Abo Ye Benabicham, Kongse Quessa SCBC. SCBC Ba born in a long Zalburg, Quessa Mena Chama, don't we? Yena taught up in a Quessa SCBC. Me ya go.
SCBC is your television. It's a communal project of the people of Amazonia. Come join us to support SCBC. If you love SCBC, fund SCBC. Pataroki. You can donate by making one of the following donations. 1. Do a one-time donation of any amount. 2. Become a monthly stakeholder with $25, $50, $100 for any amount of your choice. 3. Join the Chairman's Club by donating $1,000 or more. SCBC, the voice of Amazonia. Contact email address info@scbctv.com.
Welcome back, fellow viewers, fellow Southern Cameroonians. Again, this is the hot seat. With us, we have the Secretary of Communication of your IG, Comrade Milton Taka. Yes, Comrade Milton Taka, I wanted you to take a chill, cold water because I want to talk now on something that touched you personally. I want to ask you this question. Why were you fired from your position as the Vice Acting President of Amazonia?
I was fired for just doing my job, like Samuel Wazizi, who has just been slaughtered for doing his job. I would unveil some truths for Ambazonians to understand. If you're a politician, you don't belong to this revolution. The fact that you have done politics before and you're not able to transition from being a politician to being a revolutionarist, it means at every turn of the event, you will be thinking on how you better position yourself than position the Ambazonian revolution. Comrade Dan Pacho, interestingly, Sako and I, as Milton, did not have personal problems. Sako never saw me as a threat for his position as acting president because I've really never been a threat to anybody's position. Chris Ano will tell you the same thing. But why was I fired? I would pick up the key event on the 6th of June 2018 that remained classified and was declassified this year. Point number one, was that after we took the reign of power as acting president and acting vice president, I had expected that a leader would understand that when you are called leader, it means there's a leadership framework under you that does the thinking, and you only proclaim the decision of cabinet. In many instances, Sako came across like a brute dictator who had no regard, not only for his vice president, but for all other cabinet members. And I'll give some very quick examples. Members of cabinet had no idea that Sako Ekome wanted to set up a so-called Naira 10 investigation. When he finally brought it to cabinet to say, I have set up, we told him, and I'll single out Brado here, it is a bad idea. It is a bad idea because we do not have a judiciary. Our intelligence services is still in the formation stage. We are not able to get the facts. What we need to focus on is the liberation of the leaders. Sako went on to create a so-called Naira 10 investigations. The day the results came out, he posted in cabinet, come out, and I asked him to send a copy to me, which he did. It was a one-page document. When I read that, it is the biggest piece of trash I've ever seen. So when I say the Naira 10 investigation was trash, people might not know, but it's because I have inside information. Just give me some time, please. So I went back to Sako and I said, listen, looking at this document, there was no investigation. It is unheard of that in the one-page document, you, the acting president, want to go out and read, and not the commissioner of investigations. You want to suspend, Ayaba, suspend Akwanga, suspend Mangang, suspend Milan, suspend Dr. Success, because according to you, or Naloa, these people knew about the meeting. So the fact that somebody knows about a meeting means the person is guilty. But what we finally found out, my dear Amazonians, is there was no investigation. I'll give you two quick examples. Man was reached on WhatsApp, and Mangang said, I am willing to cooperate, but given that our leaders have just been kidnapped, I am not going to meet anybody face to face. I want a remote interview, and I will deliver. Mangang was never called to the day she now heard that she has now been suspended from the IG. Nalowabi, when this fellow wanted to talk to Nalowabi, the lawyer said, this little girl is like a cockroach. She just came out of jail in a terrible state, and you guys are not even thinking about taking her out of Nigeria, which is very risky, as well as taking out her children. All you want to do is to interrogate her as one of those that was involved in the kidnap of leaders. I'm her lawyer. If you want to talk to Nalowabi, talk to me. And I must quickly just add there before I finish that this, I want to call them wicked people with complete disregard for even her age, abandoned this poor child in Nigeria, and it took muzzling for the IG to put out $2,500. I had to create a WhatsApp group and literally undress people for that to happen. That's what it takes to get some of these guys in this revolution do the things that unfortunately they have to do. So that's point number one, Comrade Don Pasho. Point number two, these guys sit up and then they tell themselves, we want to control a media arm where nobody tells us what to say and when to say it. We say the things the way we want it. If we want to destroy Comrade Don Pasho, nobody will stop us. They then cooked up a story that says SCBC is owned by some people in South Africa. That is the biggest piece of shit, I don't use that language, I've ever heard. Ever heard. let it be known that in South Africa, there is an Amazonian bank account. There are 3 signatories to those bank accounts. The signatories are Amazonians. They are Amazonians. They are Amazonians. That is how our first account was created. Accounts in all other places were created like that. So those who registered vehicles for the revolution did it because of the love they had for country, knowing fully well that they put their lives and the lives of their family at risk by accepting to do that. So the attack on SCBC was the biggest lie from the pit of hell. And let Amazonians know that when Barrister Bobga was head of the Presidential Council, he asked to see the documents of SCBC. SCBC told him that the president had instructed that SCBC remains classified so that we can protect this machinery of the revolution. I intervened. Those documents were shared to Barrister Bobga, then as acting president. He was head of the Presidential Council because nobody knew where Sisiku was. When Sako Ekome came into power, he saw the documents. He saw them. There are a number of people who were copied in the email. So when you hear people lying to you to say, we were not sent the documents, we don't know how much SCBC is being paid for, it's a horrible lie. Now, I give the third thing. I have a document I can share with Amazonians. When SCOPE was created in South Africa, SCOPE had one objective. I've said this to a number of agency comrades. SCOPE had the objective to protect the IG against AGOV-C and against SCYL. There was no other objective apart from the ones that you hear that were being manufactured. It was to protect the IG. And to protect the IG, SCOPE conceived what you call grassroots mobilization, which is something the SCNC should have done that they were not doing. So when this concept was presented to Sako, and Sako fought it. And when it came into cabinet, I have been a grassroots leader in this country. Nothing happens in South Africa without me knowing. And I had to explain to Sako that stop fighting SCOPE. SCOPE is meant to protect you. And Sako continued fighting it and eventually joined his gang members to say, South Africa and SCOPE have put down an army on the ground to fight the People's Interim Government. It then occurred to me that Sako had earned for himself the title of the chief liar in the revolution, the chief unifier, and did not the disunifier, and did not have a percentage of a score to lead anybody who's got brains. So I raised these things, Don Pasho, in response to the question that I then got fired because every time they came in to attack the revolution, I stood up against them. And they could not stand anybody who's got a mind of their own. Take note that when I got fired out of cabinet, every single person who stood for the truth was fired.
Comrade Milton, there is a communique that stated that you were fired because you were a member of SCOPE. Have you ever been a member of SCOPE? Or are you
it's interesting
still a member of SCOPE?
We know who are SCOPE leaders. I have never, ever been a member of SCOPE. I took a strategic decision not to be a member of SCOPE. I would have joined SCOPE because I was invited by the SCOPE founders on the day their manifesto was being written in Midrand in South Africa. And I was convinced that the grassroots mobilization strategy of theirs will move into AGC, move into SCYL and SCNC, and it will be good for the revolution. But being the acting vice president, I took a decision to say a good father is like a chief of a village who does not side with one party. I decided to be neutral. Why do some of them say I am a member of SCOPE? On the day SCOPE was being launched, 2 of us from cabinet had to be there representing cabinet. Sako and his gang had done everything to divide the revolution, And it became almost a challenge if you had to stand up for the truth. But I told them in cabinet, I said, guys, scope I know. It is being launched in my constituency, South Africa. I will be at the launch. I don't need anybody's permission. I was at the launch. I addressed our people, and I remember on that day, I launched a fundraising for Comrade Akuma. So the straight answer is I have never been a member of SCOPE, but I've always known that SCOPE as a then had all the good intentions to support the IG. Sako Ekome and his little gang fought it and brought division to the struggle.
Yes, when you said you went to SCOPE, you went to the SCOPE conference, the day they were forming SCOPE. I will ask you, you said you went because you went after the cabinet decided that they will not support SCOPE. Why did you stand against the cabinet to go to where they have refused, and you as the acting vice president disrespected your boss?
Cabinet then was made of about 16 people. 4 people who always had a meeting before the meeting and came into cabinet to force the and will not win because some of us were there, were those that were trying to make sure that SCOPE had a stillbirth, and there were those that were trying to push that I do not go. That vote did not win. In fact, one of them in cabinet said, since you are going, bring your speech. Let us review it. And I asked them, who has brought a speech into this cabinet to be reviewed before going out? Is it Chris Ano or Sako? Why must I be the first? And of course, I didn't.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you this question because you are one of those who have been a victim. President Sisiku recalled Sako and others to fall back to the positions that they were proud to their adoption because of mismanagement, other horrible things that happened under Sako. But rather, he hesitated and decided to play all kinds of games with gullible Ambazonians. Did you, Milton Taka, regret for not resisting when he fired you, even though he did not have the powers to do so?
I think I have a famous letter published on the day I was fired. And I've got to say this to Amazonians. I had many advisors who told me, fight this guy. Fight him like no man's business. We were very disappointed if you don't fight. I sat on my bed and I prayed after reflecting. And it occurred to me that if I decided to fight Sako, I will be fighting the Ambazonian people. It was obvious that he had made a mistake. It was obvious that he was using some journalists at that time or social media activists to try and blackmail me. I was not willing to defend myself because I knew that it would be distracting the revolution. So I put out a letter thanking Ambazonians, and I encourage you to go back to that letter, Comrade Don Passion. I thank Ambazonians for giving me an opportunity to serve them. And in that letter, I did put what I considered were criteria for good leadership. And I'm going to point out the 3 of them. A good leader must have integrity. For Pidgin, it means say, man where you word, na you word. Man where you word, na you word. Man where you trust her, man where you get respect for yourself. That's number 1. Number 2, a good leader must be somebody who's a wonderful unifier, who denies himself or herself for the sake of unity. Sako Ekome, it divide Germany. It divide Canada. It sent people of South Africa, made it divide South Africa, it failed. Sako Ekome divided the House of County Reps. There's a House of Surrogates led by Marianta. There's an authentic house led by Dr. Daniel, and the crimes are many. And the 3rd one, Comrade Don Passion, a good leader must be available to be held accountable at all times. And accountability means you go to the people and say, ask me anything. And that's why when I get invited by any platform, I'm not scared to go there. You know why? I have no skeletons. I've served this revolution with all honesty. If you look at those 3 points, I honestly think that any Ambazonian who is still running behind Sako like a sheep doesn't have a brain. I mean, being brainwashed is not good enough. They need to think very well and ask what they're fighting for. If they are fighting for the Ambazonia that we were told on the 1st of October 2017 will be a country of true freedoms, where justice and respect for the basic tenets of great societies must prevail, they must think again. I'm afraid most of them are good to be CPD and fellows. They're not fit to be revolutionaries.
Yes, Comrade Milton, you know, many people, they say President Sisiku divided the IG, that it is not Sako who divided the IG, that President Sisiku divided the IG. What do you think, as Secretary of Communication, about President Sisiku's letter? Did he form another government or call his cabinet? Because there is a difference between and forming something new. So, what do you have to tell the Ambazonian people about this?
To fellow Ambazonians who have been brainwashed and they have caged themselves and have believed a lie for too long, let me share some facts with you. The cabinet Comrade Sisiku Love was made of about 15 people that were not kidnapped, including some of the ambassadors that were still in cabinet at that time. Of all 15 people, 10 of those people do not have anything to do with Sako now for almost 2 years. The 5 that remain with Sako are Chris Ano, Elat, Ayi Martins. We have Dennis Atemken, and the 5th one is, if I'm not mistaken, Coco Blains. The truth about it is that Sisiku recalled Sako's cabinet in May 2019. In October, November, December 2018, the Ambazonian people were tired of Sako. The Ambazonian people then organized the Ambazonian People's National Congress, whose initial objective was to say, Sako, your misleadership has been destroying the revolution for too long. Let us come together and strengthen IG institutions. This is 7 months before Sako was recalled. Let us come together and strengthen IG institutions for the sake of our revolution. 2 things happened within just the time when the APNC was to be held. Sako, out of the books, then said the IG wants to organize a conference because only the IG can allow Ambazonians to meet together. The president said, when the civil society, made of Penn Terrence, T. Conrad, Mark Barretta, and all the greats in the revolution come together and say, we are not winning. Let us get together. Maybe it is good for you as government to go listen to your people. When Sako's government refused that they would not even authorize the conference, there were lots of negotiations that took place. The president, as a key unifier, then appealed to both Sako's government and the APNC leadership that I was part of to go sit and match the 2 conferences. The president insisted that the conferences had to take place in the same place, on the same day, as a united platform. I led presentations from the APNC, and Sako's vice president led presentations on behalf of cabinet. The records are there. The cabinet came with instructions, tell them we are not interested. If there's going to be any conference, it will be after March or April. So this is a government that calls itself a government of the people. That's point number one. Point number two, the president said, we have listened to the stories on how SCBC was almost being killed. We now notice that ABC is in the airs or on air. It is not good for Ambazonians to be paying $12,500 on two platforms and talking to the same people. Can you guys go merge these two entities together? Let's have one entity so that money is saved for the Amazonian people. Comrade Don Pasho, this was happening in November, December, and January. There were meetings in which you had representatives of the entire structure of our leadership. Cometa and his leadership from the Restoration Council, the ASC in terms of our defense wing, Comrade Daniel Pa Ebai from the House of Country Reps, our leadership in jail, and Sako's government, there were 5. And it became clear that we need to put this thing on vote. And there was a vote that took place that said, guys, now that the government is not willing to unite, let us vote and decide whether to go with the government's conference, whether to go with the APNC. In other words, should the government support the APNC? And it's a collective of government, 5 structures. The majority vote said everybody should go to Philadelphia. That's when you then heard of Colonel Bang, whatever, and so on. So bottom line is, Sako's never cared for leadership. I don't know how you follow a leader who does not unify. When you sit on this platform, all you hear is blackmail. Sako introduced surrogacy inside IG. Before he took the IG was not divided. By the time Sako was being recorded, the IG could not raise money. The IG was nowhere. This is a guy who dissolved the DOD without discussing that in cabinet. Who dissolved ASC without discussing that in cabinet. These are facts. Anybody has contrary views, let them present them. So I think that's really it. So anybody who thinks that the president divided a revolution is unfortunate. You've allowed cheap lies to deceive you. You've allowed cheap lies to blackmail you, to completely brainwash you. The reason why Chris Ano has consistently manufactured funny tales is deliberately to keep this thievery cartel of theirs alive. And unfortunately, because they could talk to our people on the ground, they knew that this was going to confuse our people. And once our people are confused, it will weaken the struggle. Nobody can tell me, and I told Chris, I know this in a meeting with SCAF, nobody can justify why Sako goes parading himself as so-called president. The reality is, if you are doing pro bono work and the people say you should go, why don't you retire and work behind the scenes? When you fired me, I met Chris Ano in Germany. I paid my own flight, my own hotel accommodations, everything. I visited 4 countries: Switzerland, Germany, UK, and Australia, on Amazonian business. I wasn't vice president. I was an ordinary Amazonian. Must Sako be president to work? It's a shame. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Comrade Milton, for this wonderful clarification. I will then ask you, because in that meeting that you were talking about, that was being held in jail with our leaders. Many people are always saying that they cannot rule from jail. We have a leaked audio circulating where Anu vehemently told the president, "You cannot lead me from jail, not from behind bars, Mr. President." Those were his words. Now, to you, I want to ask you, is President Ayok Tabe leading this revolution from jail?
I'm glad your question is President Sisiko leading from jail or ruling from jail? The LCNC has taught us very well that when their leader was arrested and locked up in Kondenge, he was then voted to be the chairperson of the LCNC while in detention. Because when your leader is locked up, he becomes the diamond and the central focus of the revolution. When Nelson Mandela was arrested and locked up for 27 years, the leader of the revolution was Oliver Tambo. But Oliver Tambo transferred all powers to Nelson Mandela, who was the voice of the South African liberation. I want to talk to one for Pigeon. Any Amazonian, where realize the fact, say, Sisiko Ayoktabe, apart from being a leader prepared by God to liberate we, apart from being an authentic, honest leader, Lord of integrity, a leader with a lot of love for we people, he no be interested in leadership. Sisiko Ayoktabe, he did lead we because Conclave 4 resolution, he be make you the leader of a revolution, he be give you the powers for appoint your cabinet, and he be give you the powers for dissolve that cabinet. He's got it. It's in conclave resolutions, in consultation. Now, when the president be disappear, all we be the pray one thing. We be pray say, make it be. Say eventually, God go help make with president a show up. Constitutionality, it tell we people them, may they respect law. I go like make Ambazonian and go look at resolution 14 of Conclave 4. Resolution 14 of Conclave 4. Wait till the resolution talk. The resolution it give powers to President Sisiko to put up your cabinet. President Sisiko no be die. They be kidnap you. They treat you in horrible condition inside underground bunker them. But he remain our president because of the right thing that when they eventually surface, all will be the struggle only for hear their voice. It be the strong. God can help they be able to start talk with we, whether they talk not through messenger them or whatever. Now, when president start be in touch with Sako, with Cometa, and other members of the cabinet, it will be evident. Say it will continue inside the same road. The wonderful revolution where God be plant them, we launch them like rocket on September 22nd, 2017 and 1st October 2018. It go die because of a leaderless top. The president be consulted widely. It be get meetings including with Sako and a group, and it be clear. Say it be good. Make we thank Sako. Say don't try. Because any man way it choose for can play a role in the revolution, he don't try. President, he know the rule. He get a right for lead. But take note, say the leadership na a quasi leadership because he never jail. He no be talk time we want talk. He no be whole meeting with people them. So he must appoint a person where he trust them. Now on that basis, where President Sisiko be do a lot of vetting. When I see, say we new vice president now, it do a wonderful job. President be do a lot of vetting for ensure say we not put rat inside granite again. He eventually appoint Comrade Daphne Yerima as vice president, make it rule on your behalf. If Comrade Daphne Yerima know the rule on president your behalf, president get right for move ye. Until that resolution will be changed by a constituted assembly of our people, he has the mandate. Now, resolution 14. So the president did not act out of order. For Congress, they were Sako don't fool them, say president the rule out of jail. I never remember the time when me and President Sisi couldn't show inside meeting. When I know say they for jail. So President Sisiko is not ruling, but he get right for give advice. He get right for look at what did happen inside the revolution. He get right for talk after consulting and advise the leadership may take a particular line of thought because he is our president. And that is a point that Ambazonians should get. It is strategic. If agency don't discover them, if consortium don't discover them, when I need for know, say those the way they call them Kondenge IG, their number one plan never kill Sisiko, and God forbid they will never succeed.
Thank you very much, Comrade Milton. I want to ask you, can you explain to the Ambazonian people what was the rationale of the creation of the IG in which you served as a spokesperson? What was the rationale of creating that IG?
Well, the rationale of creating the IG was to actualize the vision of our revolution. And what is the vision of our revolution that President Sisiko declared on the 1st of October 2017? It was to actualize the complete restoration of the statehood of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. The conception of the IG was intended to be a united platform where every movement, SCNC, AGOVC, SCYL, had a part to play in the central leadership. And I say that with a lot of force because I was one of those that was consulted by the president to do research and make some recommendations that finally made it into his first cabinet.
Okay. Now, how will you evaluate the efforts of the IG in you serve in promoting and advancing the revolution?
I have had discussions with leaders of different movements, and in as much as they would fight the IG in public, at least I'm talking of the IG of 2017 and 2018, right up till about December, they knew that the IG was the voice of the revolution. They knew that the IG had its legitimacy from the people of Amazonia, from the divisive champions and surrogate champions hijacked the people's IG. The truth is that the IG now has a lot of questions and can only be made better when Ambazonians truly take their positions and own this revolution. And let me talk about that again, Comrade Don Passion. This revolution is the people's revolution. It is not the leader's revolution. So I refuse when Ambazonians say some leaders are destroying our revolution. Who say your power there? Take them out. If I'm not delivering, fire me. You need to have leaders who serve you and not you serving them. So unfortunately, with Sako and gang now running what you call a surrogate group, posturing as the IG and confusing our people, the truth about it is that it caused lots of questions being raised by the IG. But Comrade Yerima is a gentleman, he's very focused, and we're doing everything in our power to reposition the revolution. We're working very hard to collaborate with Ambazonian nationalist movements that we believe have the interests of our people at heart.
Much, Comrade Milton. I will now ask you as the spokesperson, right, of this IG. Do you recognize the efforts of or faction and leaders within the revolution? Do you think that the inability of the diaspora community groups, opinion leaders to embrace brotherhood and talk to one another is responsible for the misunderstanding on the ground with our forces? What can be done according for coexistence and the brotherhood to be effective among patriotic Ambazonian fighters on the ground?
You see, when we were at Conclave 1, we had two flags to choose from. In that meeting, in as much as we had leaders from different platforms that were very rooted in their ideologies, we chose one flag. We had two national anthems that were presented to us in that meeting. And after debate, those leaders, given the spirit of Conclave 1, submitted to the the anthem that we are singing today. We came up with a slogan, all for one, one for all. Comrade Don Pasho, to answer your question, Ambazonians in the diaspora are crazy. Many of them are crazy. It is unheard of that you leave your village in Ambazonia or city where you were born in, and you find yourself in a Western country, and your practice of democratic values is worse than that of people who are in your own village, who are still there, who have never seen town. This revolution needs genuine people to preach the gospel of the truth fearlessly and not mind the amount of distractions that come from surrogates. But I know that a majority of our people are good. I know that the biggest majority of Ambazonians are actually not very active because of what a small, tiny group of distractors are doing. So it would be unfair, perhaps, for any of us to completely whitewash the whole diaspora as being devilish. It's not true. It is a few criminals with political ambitions, with economic ambitions, who see this revolution as a farm. They are not interested in our liberation. They are interested in their own ulterior objective that they have set. My message to the diaspora is this: your actions are being recorded. Every single one of you has a CV, and we know you. What you say, what you write, including those you do in your sacred houses. Did you ever believe someday that blue and white army founders will come out to say, we are sorry, we're those who created this thing that destroyed the revolution? So you will answer. In South Africa, you had black people who worked with white imperialist apartheid champions to kill, destroy, and delay the liberation of this country. Some of them are still serving jail term till now. And I'm telling you, Ambazonians, who are walking on the blood of our people, change. You better change and come out and confess like others have done so we can forgive you now. If you fail to do that, you will confess in Boya. Ground Zero needs unity.
Thank you very
in the
much.
diaspora. We need to collaborate.
Yes, Comrade Milton, I was curious to ask you, what message do you have for those people that you see over social media contributing, saying that they are contributing money not to La Republic to Cameroon, to fight our own soldiers who are on the ground, fighting to defend us first, before chasing away the enemy, defend the homeland? What message do you have for such people who sit in their comfort zones in the diaspora and instigate such hate?
To anybody who's contributing money directed to fight our own people, directed to attack our own people, directed to attack boys who have sacrificed everything to liberate them, I want to say this to you: my brother, my sister, you are acting in you're acting in error. It's a treasonable offense. That's the reality. But it is important you understand this, that there will never be a Sisiku Ambazonia, Ayaba Ambazonia, Milan Ambazonia, Sako Ambazonia, Ayim Ambazonia. It's never going to be. There's just going to be one Ambazonia. And if there's just going to be one Ambazonia, this is what it means. When you say, we don't want to see any other person fighting, we are the only people who want to fight to liberate Ambazonia, you are stupid. And I say that respectfully. You are saying Herpa should go away so that you can stay in the wilderness and never get to Ambazonia. This struggle to liberate our people is very complex and very tasking. There is a place for all Ambazonians to play a part. There is a place for all Ambazonians to contribute. Your role should be to preach the message of peace. If I'm sure in my heart of hearts that Sako Ekome is fighting to liberate our people, he knows I will not have a problem to sit down at the table with him and get us talk the differences that we might have or with the movement or government that I represent for the good of our people. But Don Pasho, I must equally add this. A revolution is not a kumbaya where you go into church and you sing with everybody. You don't sit on the table with traitors. You don't sit on the table with sellouts. You don't sit on the table with infiltrators. The moment your investigation is about 80% conclusive that a particular person can be working for the enemy, you should begin to find a way to send them very far away from your meetings and ensure that you do not help them to transmit every single strategy to the enemy before you implement them. So I don't agree that collaboration means with everybody. I insist it is collaborator with patriots, honest Ambazonians with integrity only. That is why the likes of Nick Santos, they must stay in the coal until we get a free Ambazonian, we bring him in chains and throw him in the deepest jail.
Thank you very much, Comrade Milton. I always like
Welcome.
to end my show with what I term a 1 million man. This is a 1 million man question to you, Comrade Milton. Many Ambazonians see you as a true patriot and a leader who can take up the leadership battle and take us to Boya. My question now to you, Comrade Milton, is, if given the opportunity to the helm of the IG in one sentence, will you accept?
Milton Taka will want to support Yerima to shine because it's never about positions, it's about teamwork. I believe we have a good leader. We need more good people to join us to support him.
Thank you very much, Comrade Milton Taka. Fellow viewers, fellow Southern Cameroonians, we have come to the end of today's episode of The Hot Seat. I believe we Ambazonians, we need to hold our leaders accountable for whatever they are doing. That is why I put it that we are on the hot seat, because whenever any leader comes to this program, he or she feels the heat that is on the seat. Rendezvous will be next Monday, and I will bring up another great leader who will to us. Once again, thank you very much, Comrade Milton, for your sacrifice to Ambazonians.
Thank you, Comrade Del Pasho. Thank you to viewers and listeners. God bless you. Stay focused. Ambazonia will be free. Is unstoppable.
Thank you very much, and bye.
Bye-bye.
The idea of human right is that each one of us, no matter who we are or where we are born, is entitled to the same basic rights and freedom. Yet, every day around the world, millions of people experience at least one form of human right abuse, knowingly or unknowingly. Human rights are not privileges and cannot be granted or evoked. These are inalienable and universal. What exactly are the basic human rights? Who gets to pick them, and who enforces them, and how? Throughout the centuries and across societies, religions and cultures, we have struggled with defining notions of rightfulness, justice, and rights. But one of the modern affirmations of universal human rights emerged from the ruins of World War II with the creation of the United Nations. In 1948, the UN General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This declaration is based on the principle that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Some of the principles of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights include, but are not limited to,
we are all born free. We all have our own thoughts and ideas, and we should all be treated the same way.
We all have the right to life and to live in freedom and safety.
No one should be held as a slave, and no one has the right to hold anyone else as a slave.
No one has the right to inflict torture or to subject anyone else to cruel treatment.
Everyone has the right to a nationality.
Everyone accused of a crime has the right to a fair and public trial. And those that try us should be independent and not influenced by others.
No one has the right to enter our homes or intrude on our families without good reason.
Everyone has the right to their own opinion and to be able to express them freely. We should be able to share these ideas with whoever we want and however we want it. Freedom from discrimination. Freedom of movement.
Freedom of peaceful assembly and association.
These and many more ought to be a guide on how we live as humans. But is this really the case?
If these principles are well developed, why are human rights abused and ignored most often all over the world?
The Human Rights Corner is an educative TV show aimed at sensitizing people about their human rights globally and targets most especially the people of British Southern Cameroons whose human rights for the past 59 years, and especially in the past 4 years, have been non-existent. A people who have been forced to flee to bushes because their houses got burnt. A people who have been shot at and burnt alive while they slept. A people who have witnessed their loved ones slaughtered before them. A people who have been forced to shut down schools because their oppressors provided an unsafe environment for the kids, invading schools with military. A people whose women have become grave diggers because their husbands and sons are dead, missing, or have fled for fear of being shot at on sight. Children who have watched their parents killed before them. Mothers who have had to watch their children, from babies to adults, gunned down randomly. Young and old women being raped daily. Pregnant women shot at or arrested and jailed. A land in which everyone is a criminal with no crime. These are the people we wish to connect to at the Human Rights Corner. a place which will give them hope in a country where there is none, a place where their rights will be fought for, a place where they will be heard by the world. Yes, we can overcome this. If only all of us, our oppressed and abused people of Southern Cameroons, rise and speak in unison of the atrocities bestowed on us and our loved ones, for it is always just another story until you become the story. The Human Rights Corner, brought to you and hosted by the Southern Cameroon Women's League, will be live every 2 weeks on SCBC discussing these issues. Let's all come together and fight against human rights abuses in our homes, communities, organizations, and government. Watch out for Human Rights Corner, coming soon on SCBC TV.